And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Friday, the 28th of October. Well, Brisbane is beautiful today. It's a little bit humid, but it's 27 degrees and sunny. Hey, it's wonderful to have your company. Last night was the Premier's function, the Premier's reception for the Indian community, and it was very well attended. I'll guess you what. Tomorrow we bring to you a very, very special segment with the full coverage of all the major speeches of the day yesterday, and it was good to see that the weather did stand out all right. There was a bit of a rain just before the start of the reception, and people were a little bit worried to see what's going to happen, but it turned out to be very, very good. A large number of people attended that, so we will bring to you the full report tomorrow. Well, today, being Friday, we also look at all the functions and events that are taking place. But right now, let's get on with the news, and let's take a look at the budget. Once again, Laura Tingle looks at that report.
The first budget reply speech is a moment for an opposition leader to lay down some markers. How is Peter Dutton positioning himself?
Well, he's obviously got a very aggressive reputation, Sarah, but it's interesting that he's been less sort of going for the jugular than Tony Abbott was when he became leader. He's actually said we'll support policy where we think it's good, things like the childcare subsidy changes, pharmaceutical benefit payments changes. So he's saying, you know, we'll support quite a lot of things. He's not saying we're going to oppose violently a lot of measures, but he's protested about some of them, and he's also tried to use it to reformulate his public persona. He's not walking away from his strongman position, if you like, as the border force guy or in defence, but he's talking a lot about protecting women and children and doing something about domestic violence.
I think I also heard him say, use that Labour's line, I think, cheekily from before the election, everything is going up except your wages.
Yes, it was obviously such a good line, he decided he'd use it too.
Why not?
And, of course, Labor is vulnerable because the economy has deteriorated here and overseas since they won office. So he's saying, well, you know, power prices, taxes, interest rates are all going up. Now, obviously, a hot debate about whether that's Labor's fault, whether that's the coalition's fault, or whether it's just the way of the world because of what's happened in the global economy. But it's interesting that he's positioning that so hard so early and saying that families will be $2,000 worse off by Christmas.
So how vulnerable is Labor here? It's clear that he made that. He emphasised it in the speech. It's been part of the last 48 hours. How vulnerable is Labor?
Well, I think it's interesting, Sarah, if we look at where we've come from since the budget speech. All this attack is on energy prices primarily. I mean, Peter Dutton talked about the stage 3 tax cuts, which haven't actually been abandoned yet. He's saying, you know, we're going to have industrial mayhem as a result of IR, which is also contentious. But energy prices are a vulnerability. And it's interesting that he has linked the fact that energy prices are going to go up or are going up to the fact that Labor wants to do all this transition to renewables.
At the same time, there's a lot of voices now starting to come into the debate. On Budget Day, the Treasurer himself in the press conference, although not in the budget, raised the idea that there could be an intervention. This is clearly going to be a very big debate coming up. Now, there's been an intervention from Rob Sims. What's out there as possibilities for intervening in the market? Okay,
so you can basically intervene on supply of gas, which is the primary sort of effector of electricity prices, or you can affect the price. Now, they put in place an agreement, a heads of agreement with the gas companies to lock in a supply, but there's a feeling that the gas companies are basically able to drive a truck through that, so I think they're looking to close that down. And they're also threatening and looking at a range of measures which might put a cap on prices or which might regulate prices. In the background is that threat of putting a big tax in place. I think it's complicated because there are a lot of ministers involved here, a lot of state governments involved. They don't want to, given what happened with the resource super profits tax, they don't want to sort of really frighten the horses here. But They've now got the Treasurer enlisted in this, as well as the Energy Minister, the Industry Minister, the Resources Minister, the ACCC are coming in. I think they're looking at a range of measures, but essentially it will be something where they say, look, we've basically done it on a, we trust you basis, and that hasn't proven to be very effective. We will basically mandate caps on prices unless you behave yourselves.
Now, in that you mentioned a whole series of different ministers, of course, and we did see before the budget, they deny this, but some fissures starting to appear between what Ed Husic was saying and what Madeleine King was saying. Are these genuine political fissures?
I don't think they're really terrible. If you think about it, if you're the Resources Minister, you're going to be trying to look after the resources companies. Ed Husic, as Industry Minister, is going to be looking after the domestic industry base. I think it's tricky because
the situation is tricky, but right now let's hear from the Leader of Opposition, Peter Dutton.
Fresh from his budget reply speech, the opposition leader joins me now. Peter Dutton, welcome to 7:30, this special programme. The then opposition made promises on energy prices as the Ukraine war was raging. It's a point you've made. But you were actually in government then, in a much better position to know what effect the war would have on those prices. So what measures did the government put in place at that critical time to protect consumers?
Well, Sarah, a few points. I mean, if you look at the history of the 9 years in government, power prices under us went up on average by 0.3% year on year over the course of the 9 years. So there are different events that come along. It doesn't matter, frankly, whether it's energy or other economic shocks, inflation as it is now, the COVID virus. Governments have to adapt and have to deal with that and respond to it. So there were numerous conversations with companies, with a better understanding of what investments needed to be made to bring more supply online, to try and keep those prices down. So the government of the day has to be adaptable, has to deal with the circumstances coming their way. And as I've demonstrated...
Clearly, but I think the question was, what measures did your government put in place to protect consumers? Bearing in mind that you are now very critical of a promise that the opposition made, you were in government, what did you do specifically to protect consumers?
Well, we had a record of investment into renewables. We've got the highest uptake on a...
I'm sorry, I will interrupt, forgive me, because it's important. I'm asking what specific measures you took, knowing, with the knowledge that you had in government about what was happening in Ukraine. What did you do to protect consumers from rising electricity prices?
Well, I don't think you should give too much weight to Labor's claim here. I mean, this is a concocted argument here. Yes, it has some influence, and the war in Ukraine, don't forget, started in February. The Prime Minister had what he described as the best modelling in the world. It knew everything that was going on in the Ukraine, what was likely to happen there and how long it would go on for. I don't know what assumptions they made, but Labor was pretty confident in it. And the fact is that they got it wrong. And the Prime Minister on 97 occasions promised that power prices would reduce by $275. He doesn't have the decency now to apologise that they got it wrong. The Ukraine war was well...
So that's that argument there that, so many times it was promised, and all it would probably take is just an apology to say, hi, we did get it wrong, but that doesn't happen. Well, look at this fiery response after question time.
My question is to the Prime Minister. The federal government is intending to delay $800 million of Commonwealth funding to construct the Rockhampton Ring Road by at least 2 years. In 2019, as Shadow Infrastructure Minister, the Prime Minister issued a media release titled, quote, Rockhampton Ring Road a certainty under Labor. Why is the Prime Minister breaking his personal guarantee to the people of Rockhampton?
I give the call to the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member for her question, and the member would know that as Infrastructure Minister there was substantial investment went into Rockhampton roads, particularly Yeppoon floodplain, which we funded. Did the planning for
members on my left.
Yeppoon floodplain. Yeppoon's a different place. Yeppoon's a different place. And you might want to ask the member for Capricornia, because Yeppoon is on the coast north of Rockhampton, and Yeppoon floodplain is to the south. It's the southern entry of the Bruce Highway into Rockhampton.
on my right.
roads because the Bruce Highway under John Howard's government put $1.3 billion in. We put $6.7 billion in half the time. Including the Yeppoon floodplain, including planning money for the Rockhampton Ring Road that began when Kirsten Livermore was the member for Capricornia, who campaigned for it, but when government changed in 2013, it went on the back burner. So you were in government for almost a decade, and you haven't dug a hole on the project. The environmental approvals aren't finished. The funding was underfunded for the project, so that when we looked at the detail of the project, it doesn't have enough money allocated to it under you. But we will get this project done, like we got the Yeppoon floodplain done, like we got, by the way, roads to Yeppoon done as well.
Will leave the chamber.
So Yeppoon and Yeppoon. Well, there you go. He does know Queensland, so which is good to see that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes you do have get at lighter moments. But here is the coalition MP, Michelle Landy, says she was humiliated by the Prime Minister.
Okay. Look, I just wanted to make comment about what happened in the chamber today. Now, I've been a federal MP down here for 9 years, been involved heavily with federal politics for over 12. And, I really do not appreciate being spoken to and screamed at by the Prime Minister as I was today. I asked a question, which I've talked to a lot of you about, the ring road in Rockhampton, and I feel that I've been humiliated by him and by the Labor Party. The fact that we've been talking today about kindness in the Parliament, looking after each other, and all the nice, kind words, after he screamed and pointed and yelled at me, then all his MPs, females included in that, were screaming and laughing and pointing and yelling as well. And this is not the first time that I've endured stuff from the Labor Party, from the Prime Minister's office, who have spread smear campaigns about me in Rockhampton, and also the stuff from some of the female MPs in the Labor Party. And I think that this should be a place that we can all work together. I try to treat people with respect, as how I want to be treated. And I want to thank my female colleagues here today for supporting me, because we've all had enough. They're a mob of hypocrites if they can say that everything's so wonderful on the left. Well, it's not. They treat us appallingly. Our female MPs and senators are treated like absolute garbage all the time by the left, and we have had enough. So that's why we're here today. We're here to make a stand, and this is about women across Australia. I have 2 daughters, and if I don't stand up against this bullying in the Parliament, well, they just won't have the respect for me. So, that's probably all I wanted to say about that.
That's in response to that question time where the Prime Minister went off about Yeppoon and Yeppoon plane. So, well, right now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to US. That's the 2 things. One is the economy is performing a little bit better, and the second one is about the jury being dismissed.
A mistrial.
Obviously, everyone's disappointed by what's happened, but it would be inappropriate and irresponsible to say anything at this stage.
One wait over, another pending. Bruce Lehrmann pleaded not guilty to the alleged rape, but left the ACT Supreme Court today with the accusation still hanging over his head. Mr Lehrmann strenuously denies the allegations and denies the pair ever engaged in any sexual activity. The hearings went for 12 days. The jury heard police interviews with Mr Lehrmann and Ms Higgins and watched footage of the pair entering Parliament on the night of the alleged crime. Ms Higgins alleges she woke to find Mr Lehrmann sexually assaulting her and read from a statement outside.
I chose to speak up and share my experiences with others. I told the truth, no matter how uncomfortable or unflattering, to the court. I was required to tell the truth under oath for over a week on the witness stand and was cross-examined at length. This is the reality of how complainants in sexual assault cases are treated.
But some comments in the statement drew a quick response from Mr Lehrmann's legal team. We have brought these comments to the attention of the court and the Australian Federal Police as to whether the complainant's statements might amount to a contempt of court or offences against the ACT Criminal Code. Media interest in the trial was intense, with members of the...
Yes, of course, always media attention is great on cases like that. Well, right now to the US, where we were talking about the strong economy, we finally got that clip.
New figures show gross domestic product in the United States grew at an annual rate of 2.6% last quarter after contracting over the first 6 months of the year. That is a better result than many had been expecting, and it's been welcomed by President Joe Biden, who's come under increasing pressure in the lead-up to the midterm elections that will decide the makeup of Congress for the next 2 years of his term.
Great economic report today, the GDP report. Things are looking good.
Polling suggests the economy is the #1 issue for many voters at these elections. It's certainly been the focus of Republican campaigns which have criticised Joe Biden's handling of the issue. And while, as I said, these GDP figures today were stronger than many had been anticipating, analysts have warned that the risk of recession here isn't over, pointing to a slowdown in consumer spending and also a decrease in housing investment as the Federal Reserve continues to aggressively hike interest rates as it tries to combat rising inflation. Many expect that it will deliver another significant rate rise next week.
And ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'd like to talk about this upcoming event.
Presents Ek Rangin Sham live in concert with Dutton and Jimmy Nato along with Brisbane stock singers Divan Roy Dutt and Dr. Neela, MC for night Brisbane's well-known Manju Jehu. Sound and lighting proudly brought to you by Brisbane's #1 DJ, DJ Desi. We are proudly supported by our media partners Brisbane's Indian Times and Australia Indian Radio. See you there. TNR Production presents Ek Rangin Sham live in concert with Dutton and Jimmy Nato along with Brisbane stock singers Divan Roy Dutt and Dr. Neela, MC for night Brisbane's well-known Manju Jehu. Sound and lighting proudly brought to you by Brisbane's #1 DJ, DJ Desi. We are proudly supported by our media partners Brisbane's Indian Times and Australia Indian Radio. See you there.
And of course, it was going to be a wonderful show. And last time we had Jimmy Nathu in here. Tomorrow I'll try and see if we can get him in here. Otherwise, we'll try and dig up that interview that he did when he was here last time. And what a rocking show that he put on last time. So I would like to make sure that you all come along and to this show. Here's the details once again.
TNR Production presents Ek Rangin Sham live in concert with Dutton and Jimmy Nato along with Brisbane stock singers Divan Roy Dutt and Dr. Neela, MC for night Brisbane's well-known Manju Jehu. Sound and lighting proudly brought to you by Brisbane's #1 DJ, DJ Desi. We are proudly supported by our media partners Brisbane's Indian Times and Australia Indian Radio. See you there.
And definitely love to see you all there. It's going to be a big night. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful night of music, fun, and of course having Jimmy there. It's going to be full of jokes. It's going to be a jovial, enjoyable event. Ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. Indian medical students reach Ukraine to continue their studies despite Indians being advised to leave Ukraine immediately.
Despite an advisory issued by the Indian Embassy in Ukraine asking all Indians to leave the country immediately in view of increasing hostilities, around 1,500 medical students who came back to India from Ukraine in February following the Russian military offensive have returned to the war-torn nation. These students studying in different medical colleges in Ukraine have somehow managed to reach back to pursue their studies as there was no solution in India despite waiting for months. Upon their arrival in India, the only apprehension these medical students had was about their future. In September, the Modi government told the Supreme Court of India that Ukraine returned students cannot be accommodated in Indian universities in the absence of any provision under the National Medical Commission Act 2019. Meanwhile, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on October 26 spoke to his Russian counterpart Sergei Shoigu and expressed concerns over the alleged threat of dirty bombs in the ongoing war with Ukraine. Shoigu on October 25 said he was concerned about possible provocations by Kyiv involving the use of a dirty bomb. Rajnath Singh reiterated India's position that both Russia and Ukraine should pursue diplomacy and dialogue to resolve the conflict at the earliest. He told Shoigu that nuclear war should be avoided at all costs as the use of such weapons is against the basic tenets of humanity.
India says terrorism remains one of the most serious threats to international peace and security.
India's permanent representative to the UN and Counter-Terrorism Committee Chair, Ruchira Kamboj, on October 26 said that terrorism remains one of the most serious threats to international peace and security. She stated this before the commencement of a special meeting of the United Nations Security Council's Counter-Terrorism Committee to be hosted in Mumbai and Delhi on the 28th and 29th of October. The theme of the meeting will be countering the use of new and emerging technologies for terrorist purposes. Briefing the media in New Delhi, Ruchira Kamboj said, over the past 2 decades, member states have made tangible progress in countering terrorism efforts. Yet the terrorist threat persists despite their best efforts. She also added that meeting is mindful of addressing this issue while also recognizing the potential of technologies to increase the effectiveness of counter-terrorism efforts. She said the committee has come together in India to hold its special meeting on countering the use of new and emerging technologies for terrorist purposes. Kamboj added that the focus will be specifically on rapid development, growing use by member states, and the increasing threat of use for terrorist purposes of 3 significant technologies: internet, including social media, new payment technologies and fundraising methods, and unmanned aerial systems, including drones.
Muralidharan attends Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security in Africa.
India's Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan attended the 8th Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security in Africa. The Dakar Forum has become a key event for policy discussions on Africa. This is the first time that India participated at the ministerial level in the event. His participation in the Dakar Forum underscored the importance that India attaches to the peace, security and development of Africa. It is also in line with India's policy to intensify and deepen its engagement with Africa. Muralidharan addressed the forum on the topic of global crisis and sovereignty in Africa. He called for a development paradigm that is Africa-led and Africa-owned and centered on the progress and development of the people of Africa. Muralidharan highlighted India's peacekeeping contributions and assistance during COVID-19 in the form of vaccines, climate action and development partnerships, along with stressing the need for UNSC reforms. During the visit on the 24th and 25th of October, Muralidharan interacted with the Indian community in Dakar and greeted them on the occasion of Diwali celebrations. On the eve of National Unity Week, Muralidharan was joined by the Indian community in forming a unity chain to commemorate the birth anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel.
Indian National Congress chief constitutes a 47-member steering committee in place of CWC.
In his first organizational move as Congress President, Mallikarjun Kharge on October 26 constituted a 47-member steering committee to function in place of the Congress Working Committee, the highest decision-making body of the party, till a new CWC is constituted. In his first address at party headquarters in New Delhi, the Congress chief said, "We have to fight and save our constitution. This is our collective goal. Will fulfill all duties as the party president, but will urge you all to put all your dedication and effort while standing next to me." He added, "I know this is a difficult phase. I know that the democratic principles that were established under the Congress administration are being done away with right now. But I know that we as a party will break the rule of hate and lies. Our principles are based upon the principles of the Constitution." He also invited others to join Congress to fight against BJP. He said there are many people who are not involved with our party but still want to fight in order to save our country's democracy. I invite all of them to come and join us, and I assure them this will be benefiting not only the party but also the country. Shashi Tharoor, Kharge's rival in the Congress presidential elections, did not find a place in the committee. Though Tharoor had received 1,072 votes compared to Kharge's 7,897, his performance against a perceived establishment candidate who had the blessings of the Gandhi family was better than that of party stalwarts Sharad Pawar and Rajesh Pilot in the 1997 presidential election. Given Tharoor's performance and his spirit to compete, even though Kharge was an establishment candidate, it was expected that he would be accommodated in an important organizational role. In fact, Tharoor had expressed willingness to work with Kharge for the sake of the party after the poll result was out.
Walmart raising up to $3 billion for Flipkart to expand business in India.
Retail giant Walmart is reportedly raising up to $3 billion for its e-commerce giant Flipkart to further expand its operations in India. With new funds, Flipkart's valuation is set to soar to more than $40 billion, giving a fillip to the Indian funding scene, which is going through harsh weather. Flipkart Group in July last year raised $3.6 billion to grow and advance the digital commerce ecosystem in India. The investment valued the group at $37.6 billion. Walmart may even bring strategic investors into Flipkart via this fundraising. The last fundraiser demonstrated significant interest from global investors, including sovereign funds, private equity and crossovers in addition to Walmart. It was led by financial investors GIC, Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, SoftBank Vision Fund 2 and Walmart. Officials at Flipkart believe that the quality of the investor group and valuation further confirm global confidence in Flipkart and its mission to transform commerce in India. The online retail platforms in India clocked $5.7 billion worth of festive sales between September 22nd and 30th, a robust 27% growth. The Flipkart group, which includes Flipkart, Myntra and Shopsy, continued to lead the market with a 62% market share in GMV.
Indian equity indices open on a positive note despite mixed global cues.
The Indian share market opened on a positive note on October 27th amid mixed global cues. Benchmark index NSE Nifty 50 climbed over 100 points to trade above 17,750 levels, and BSE Sensex advanced over 300 points to trade at 59,891 levels. The broader markets rose in tandem as Nifty Mid Cap 100 and Nifty Small Cap 100 rose over 0.3% each. All sectors were trading in the green as the Nifty Metal Index led the charge, rising over 1% in trade. JSW Steel, Hindalco Industries, Kotak Mahindra Bank, HDFC and Tata Steel were among the major Nifty gainers, while NTPC, Infosys, ONGC, Power Grid Corporation and HDFC Life were the laggards. After gaining during the Muhurat trading on Diwali, the equity benchmarks nursed losses on October 25th as investors booked profits after a 7-session rally amid weak Asian market cues and foreign fund outflows. The 30-share BSE Sensex failed to hold on to the gains and declined by 287.70 points or 0.48% to finish at 59,543.96. The market attention has shifted to central bank policy announcements since the European Central Bank is expected to hike interest rates at its upcoming policy meeting. Foreign institutional investors also offloaded shares worth 153.89 crores on Diwali, October 24th.
RRR wins Best International Film Award at the 50th Anniversary Saturn Awards in Los Angeles.
Blockbuster has now also begun its campaign at the award shows. On October 25th, the film won the Best International Film Award at the 50th Anniversary Saturn Awards held in Los Angeles. The awards given to genre fiction films are considered the first stop in the run-up to the Oscars, which will be held next year. Saturn Awards are presented by the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films, awarding films in science fiction, fantasy, horror and other genres belonging to genre fiction in films, TV as well as streaming. RRR beat titles like Downtown Abbey, A New Era, Eiffel, I'm Your Man, Riders of Justice and Silent Night to take home the award for the Best International Film at the 2022 function. Director S.S. Rajamouli sent a video acceptance speech from Japan where he is promoting RRR. He said, "I'm so glad that our film RRR has won the Saturn Award in the Best International Film category. I thank the jury on behalf of our entire team. We are super elated." He added, "This is the second Saturn Award for my films. The first one I won was for Bahubali, The Conclusion. I wish I was there in person, but due to my prior commitments related to the RRR release in Japan, unfortunately I am unable to attend. I'd like to congratulate all the other winners." RRR starring Ram Charan and Junior NTR is a fictionalized account of the early lives of two Indian revolutionaries, Alluri Sitaram Raju and Komaram Bhim. The film is one of the most successful Indian movies of all time with a global gross of over 1100 crores. It has also been submitted by its makers for Oscars contention following its positive reception in the US.
For this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
And thank you very much, Ankita, for that wonderful report. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, this weekend we are promoting and supporting the Ek Rangin Sam.
TNR Production presents Ek Rangin Sham live in concert with Dutton and Jimmy Nato along with Brisbane stock singers Diman Roy Dutton, Dr. Neela, MC for night, Brisbane's well-known Manju Jehu. Sound and lighting proudly brought to you by Brisbane's #1 DJ, DJ Desi. We are proudly supported by our media partners, Brisbane's Indian Times and Australia Indian Radio. See you there.
And definitely love to see you all there. It's tomorrow, don't forget. Well, right now, let's take a look at other functions and events taking place right here in Brisbane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful having your company on this Friday, the 28th of October. Today is the FICQ Diwali celebration at King George Square as well. Another great function, another annual event that people always look forward to. But don't forget that tomorrow we have this very special song.
TNR Production presents Ek Rangin Sham live in concert with Dutton and Jimmy Nato along with Brisbane stock singers Diman Roy Dutton, Dr. Neela, MC for night, Brisbane's well-known Manju Jehu. Sound and lighting proudly brought to you by Brisbane's #1 DJ, DJ Desi. We are proudly supported by our media partners, Brisbane's Indian Times and Australia Indian Radio. See you there.
And definitely love to see you all there. And tomorrow we have a very special segment on the coverage of the Premier's reception for the Indian community at the Queensland Parliament Annex in the Speaker's Green. The great turnout last night there. So we will bring to you the full coverage of all the major speeches by Minister Leanne Linnard, by Dr. Mahasina Thambi, and of course our host, the Premier of Queensland, Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk. All that is coming on tomorrow. As I mentioned before, it's always wonderful to have your company. But as I said, time is going on, so it's time to say goodbye until tomorrow.